this beautiful valley in southern Ecuador. I'm going to talk about biodynamic farming and a little bit about my life, how I got here, and also about our farm here, Finca Sagrada. I've been a biodynamic farmer my whole life. I was born in the jungles of Borneo, raised in Malaysia, so I was raised in those colonial days. Then I went to boarding school in England for some years. When I was 9, we moved to New Zealand so we could be together as a family again. And when I was 16, I decided I would become a farmer. My sister had just married a sheep farmer, and I really enjoyed working on their land, and I was at that stage where nature was very healing for me. Right away, I realized, well, I started working on conventional farms, and I realized that I was fighting nature instead of working with her. Very lucky in that my parents knew about biodynamic farming and Rudolf Steiner, and I had one of those accidents that sort of changed my life. I fell on a chainsaw. This was when I was 18. Probably can't see it. But anyway, I couldn't work for 2 months. I had my arm in a cast. And I was talking to my parents about my problems with the conventional farming. And I had already read Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring. She was like one of the first scientists who could speak in layman terms about the direction of the bad direction of conventional farming. So I was already thinking along those lines, and they suggested I go and meet a biodynamic farmer. This was in a beautiful part of New Zealand, and I spent the day with him, and it was like the perfect biodynamic farm, very diversified. He only had 15 acres, but he milked a couple of cows, he had a little orchard, he grew vegetables, he had chickens and bees, just the exemplary biodynamic farm. And at the end of the day, we were walking back to his house, and there was a hawk flying overhead, and he said something about the hawk. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was so impressed that right there and then I decided I would take up biodynamic farming, just because what that path had done for him. So I left New Zealand and went to a community farm in Northern Ireland and started learning about biodynamic farming there, and then ended up in the United States I fell in love with a young woman from the United States, and she was a Waldorf school teacher, and there was a biodynamic farm right next door. And so I spent about close to 30 years in the States, and I've been here in Ecuador for 15 years.
My name is Susan Davis Mora. I've been married to Walter Mora for 20 years now, and he is a biodynamic farmer on 3 continents. And I've been in high finance, and actually I've done networks 40 different networks over 40 years to transform finance from greed and fear to love and joy. I've done networks for making solar happen for the world. I've done many networks of greening towns, all kinds of networks. There are 40 of them. If you want to hear about my networks, they're all innovation networks that had no charge at all for people who were devoting their lives to different missions that I've mentioned. You go to our website. It's called Kinship Earth, KINSHIP, Kinship Earth, EARTH.org. And it covers all the stories of all the different networks, the people in them, how you start one. It's a glorious story of really 50 years of success. So because I figured out when I was 30, I felt like I knew why I had to be alive. And I decided that it was to transform finance because finance was destroying Earth instead of restoring it. This was my life mission. So I created more than 5 different networks that started the industry called social investment industry. And then I branched out because there are so many other opportunities for improving Earth where people have figured out why they're alive, they want to do that. And if I can help them by using this network method that I've developed, it would be a wonderful life. So here I am at 80, blissfully happy. I've been called the mother of social investing. I'm as happy as you can be. So I advocate for everyone finding out early in life what your life purpose is. You'll be happy and healthy as I am.
You know, we bought this farm about 14 years ago. And then we were part of a group that worked called The Fountain, and it was partly indigenous and partly non-indigenous. And part of our work here is that we try to work with a condor or an eagle flying as one. You know, there's that story that when the heart forces and the intellectual forces learn to work together, that will be the saving grace for the world, because right now northern climate, Western civilization is sort of destroying the earth, whereas and we've left out the heart forces. We have to bring that back into our thinking. We have to make our heart the brain of our being, of how we act. The Fountain, this group of people, were deciding where we should have our annual meeting, and we had just finished our community house, and they asked if they could have their meeting here, and we said sure. But the Kogi, they're from the northern part of Colombia, they're part of the group, they have retained their ability to look into the spiritual world, so before they do anything, they do divination, get an answer. And they came back to us and said, yeah, we'll come, but it's an ancient sacred site and it needs to be reactivated. So we're going to come 4 times to reactivate the site. And that sounded great to us. And I had done a 2-year geomancy course, not a full-time course. We gathered together 5 times a year for 4 or 5 days. So I already knew a little bit about the spiritual landscape that stands behind the physical. That's always been of great interest to me. And so I wasn't surprised, because I knew when I ever came to this land, it felt really good and special. They came, and on their 3rd visit, they suggested that we build the spirit house. You can see it here. We're going to go inside for a few minutes. And at first I was reluctant to do that, because it was like, gosh, you know, we're going to have this house here. I'd seen photos of them, and it's just going to stand empty, and I bet one day the cows are going to break in and you know, ruin it or poop in it. But anyway, I decided to do it, and I went up to Santa Marta on the Caribbean coast where they live, the ancient civilization. Wanted to introduce myself to the beings there, the unseen beings, because I know that was important. And also looked at their houses, and we came back and built it. And then the Kogi came down to baptize the house. And they didn't tell us, but as we had invited quite a few visitors from friends from the States and stuff for the special ceremony. And they lit a fire in the middle of the spirit house and said, "Hey, this fire is never allowed to go out." And that was they have a certain sense of humor. Anyway, it's okay. We've been fire keepers for 3 years now, and actually, it's the fire that keeps the spirit house living, because we have to go up there 3 or 4 times a day to put wood on the fire. And like I mentioned, we have a lot of volunteers. They often are the fire keepers. And the Kogi say when we do fire and ceremony, it's like we have a kitchen, because we're cooking food for the unseen beings, for the elemental beings. It's nourishment for them. The spirit house is like a portal to the heavens. The Kogi also said that we should call our farm Sharua, the place where the stars were seated on the earth. So for me, it's like a portal to the central sun, because all the stars, the original stars, were all birthed in the central sun, the center of our Milky Way. It feels like we have this portal to the heavens, and it's quite special. Every morning we do a ceremony based on the Hindu Agni Hotra ceremony. So we put some rice into the fire. We say a little mantra, which in Vedic, the translation is, this offering is unto the sun. This offering is not ours, this offering is thine. And we often share that with volunteers who want to do it. And it's a very special way to start the day. I think it's really helped to enhance the power, the sacred power of this valley, and I think it rays out into the surrounding areas. So we're very happy now that we have the spirit house. It anchors the spiritual aspect of our work. So we can walk over, and I think we often drum in there. About 3 years ago, a friend of mine said I should drum. I've been I've been a biodynamic farmer, but it's still, pretty hard work. And I didn't really get into drumming or anything like that, but being down here has been very nice, sort of loosened up a little bit. So I thought maybe I'd share some drumming that I do, and I often chant, do a little thank you. I make up a little thank you verse for the unseen beings around here. So we can go, you can see the fire going. Apples of the mountains, we give thanks. Apu Kondowana, we give thanks for all the beauty around us. We send you our prayers, we send you our blessings. Almighty apples of the mountains, oh princesses seven, princesses of the lagoons, we send you our blessings, our prayers. Give thanks for all the beauty around us. Give thanks for your creative might all around us, all the beauty. So that really there are 4 parts to biodynamic farming. The first one would be we create a farm ecosystem. We also have herbal homeopathic preparations that Rudolf Steiner suggested. And we have a planting calendar that's based on the moon going through the constellations of the zodiac. And also we try to be aware of the unseen beings, the nature spirits, the elemental beings, the plant divas, that whole world that makes everything possible for us. I like to introduce the idea that the physical world is a reflection of the spiritual world. And so as a farmer, we really work with that idea. Like, what does it mean? How does the spiritual world incarnate into the physical world?
after we'd been here for a couple of years, and Walter had teams of people restoring the farm and making a place we could stay and things like that, I was inside in the cabin doing my Kids Innovation Networks all day, typing. And everyone was out working. I could hear them, their happy voices. And at some point, I just knew that I did not belong here. I did not belong here. I was in the room all day. They were all outside destroying Earth. I didn't belong here. So finally, I went to Walter and I said, I am so sorry. I love you to the end of the earth, but I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not contributing. It's not my world. Walter is a very smart man. He took a minute and then he said, okay, I'll support whatever you need me to support. But all I ask is that you go down to the grandmother sabo tree, and I ask that you lie on your back under her branches and meditate. I was like, okay, I can do that. I love to meditate. So I came down here, right there. I lay down, my eyes closed on my back for a very long time, because I was so sad. I didn't want to leave. I love my husband, but my heart was telling me I had to leave. So I don't know how many hours I stayed there, but I realized, well, I don't feel completely restricted anymore. That's good. But I just kept laying there because I didn't know what else to do. Like, it's not making sense. Why would I feel better? Suddenly, this tree said to me, I want you to plant me a grandson tree. I was apoplectic. I'm like, I looked around. There was nobody here. I couldn't have made up that line. I looked at the sabo tree and I was like, if she asked me to find her grandson tree, I must be supposed to stay here. I was like, hallelujah. I went running to Walter. Walter, I'm supposed to plant Grandmother Sabo a grandson tree. I'm supposed to be here. He just started laughing at me. And I had to laugh too. So we have a close friend, an Ecuadorian, who I told him the story. He said, oh, I'll take you with me. We'll go find the grandson tree to plant. And we did. And there it is, growing, thriving, never had any growth problems at all, as sacred as his mother. And we have a grandson tree. Hallelujah.
How does the spiritual world incarnate into the physical world? Modern science, we learn in school, DNA and all that kind of stuff, which is all true, but that's already the second stage. Before that, there's a whole spiritual level that we can work on. That's been very exciting for me, because for me, biodynamic farming has been a real initiation, a spiritual path. And this all comes out of the work of Rudolf Steiner. He was a spiritual seer. He could look into the spiritual world, he could look into the Akashic record, and he could see what the earth needed as a spiritual being. He could see all the energies within the earth. And just as a homeopathic doctor, when he or she looks at a patient, they can see what kind of homeopathic medications they need. Steiner could see that on a much larger cosmic level. He could see how the earth is connected to the spiritual world and what the earth would need. Because, in the past, that all happened, that connection was there so much stronger. The earth, Pachamama, is still a beautiful, strong being, but in a certain way, we're cutting her off from the universe because of all the pollution we have, like chemtrails, and especially the electromagnetic fields that we have created with our cell phones, and now with 5G, we're going to have like 20 or 30,000 satellites circling around the Earth, just putting this mesh of electromagnetic energies around the Earth. And so what we can do with the biodynamic preparations, we can open the Earth to those energies again, with the preparations and the creating the farm ecosystem, and working with the stars and the planets, and working with the elemental beings, like I mentioned. We build the farm organism on 4 levels. Just like we have a physical body with the minerals, we also have a etheric body, which is like the blueprint of our physical body. It tells the minerals where to go, but we're also sentient beings. We have that in common with the animals, and that's more connected to the planets and the starry heavens, mainly the zodiac, the constellations of the zodiac, and we're also individual spiritual beings. On the physical level, we're working with the energy of the sun. The sun shines down, and the plant world is about 1.5% efficient in converting all that solar energy into matter. And then biodynamic farms tend to be very diversified, and we often have cows, because they're such a special being. Like in India, they're sacred animals, or even the Native Americans, they have the buffalo. They're all ruminants, and they have this ability to transform the grass into, well, the end product is obviously the manure, but the grass is all this etheric energy, life force, and then they pour, the way they digest, because they're ruminants, they pour all this astrality, they bring in, it's like they reflect in their digestion, they reflect the whole cosmos, all the planets moving around and within the circle of the constellations of the zodiac. And then we can gather that manure and compost it. Here in southern Ecuador, of course, they're grazing all year long, but in a colder climate like Europe or the United States, the cows might be inside for 4 months, 6 months, and you can collect that because it's all mixed in with the straw or other bedding. Then you can compost that, and then with that compost, we put the preparations, the biodynamic preparations within the compost, and we spread that on the land. And then we can be growing things, maybe for human consumption. Well, the cows might give milk and meat, but like on a farm I had in Wisconsin where I milked 120 cows, within that farm organism, we had a CSA, community supported agriculture, and the gardener grew vegetables for 100 people. So we were also growing human food, and I was selling wheat for bread. It was a climate that could support that. And I should also say what's so important when we create this organism, part of the definition of a living organism is that it has a skin. So we try to create the farm thinking that it has a boundary to it. So we don't bring in a truckload of cow manure from the neighboring farm, or we try to grow all the corn or beans or whatever we need for the cows and the chickens. We try to create everything within the farm. Because in biodynamic farming, we're working so much with energy, of course, unseen energies. So in this way, we really take care of the land. Of course, we also use rotation, and green manures and all that stuff. It's like we create a super ecosystem. Well, all the energy comes from the sun, but we can ship off so much food if the farm is farmed in a good, healthy way, and we can be improving the soil at the same time. So that's how we create the farm on a physical level. And then on the etheric level, or the prana, the life force level, we have an etheric body, our own individual etheric body that's the blueprint. For the earth, this blueprint is held by the elemental beings. And so if we say drill for oil in Saudi Arabia, the whole earth knows it because she's a living, sentient being that is conscious of her whole being, but that's held by these multiple beings. And just like when I hit myself here, my whole body knows it, it's the same for the earth. And it's these elemental beings that really absorb the energies. Like if we would bring in a load of chicken manure from somewhere else, it's these elemental beings that have to absorb that. It's like painful for them. It's like when we eat bad food, if you would go to McDonald's and eat too many hamburgers, it's hard for your body to absorb it. It works the same way for the elemental beings. So it's like a gift for them when we can just work with the energies within the farm, and they can work with that, but also absorbing all the energy from the sun. And then on the sentient level or astral level, we're also organizing this farm organism. Just as human beings, we have a liver and a kidney and a heart and lungs and brains, and that brings in really all these organs are connected to the different planets. And that might seem a little strange, and our modern science doesn't really teach us that, but if you're into astrology, maybe you can start to understand how that could be a truth. For instance, I'm a Sagittarian, and I just know I have similar qualities as other people that are born in December. I shoot my arrow way off into the distance, and I'm not interested in the details, and I've learned that trips me up, so I have to take care of it. Or like my wife Susan, she's a Scorpion, and man, she's a wonderful lady, but she has a tail that can come around and swipe me if I'm not careful. So in the same way, just as like when the sun is in front of Sagittarius, it gives all the people that are born that time certain qualities. In the same way, the plants are influenced not so much by when they're born, but they're the species of the plant. Like I often like to talk about a cabbage. When we know that science tells us that the cabbage grows into a cabbage because of the DNA and all that stuff, which is true. But there's a deeper level that when we put the seed in the ground, it brings in the cabbage, archetypal cabbage plant into the seed. It also comes from the cosmos. It's not just an earthly thing. It's also totally connected to the whole universe. We use these herbal preparations, the homeopathic, that Rudolf Steiner gave indications for. It makes the earth like an eye looking up into the heavens and seeing the archetypes and bringing them down into the earth, so that when we put a seed, say a cabbage seed, into the ground, the earth is so saturated with all the influences of the universe, and especially of the cabbage. The earth wants to become living. And then what happens, all those energies are available for the plants, the living forces. So when we eat that cabbage, it has those influences available for us. And our life revolves around growing the food, preparing the food, and eating the food together.
Well, meals are crucial because they keep us alive, and we all keep each other alive. And when you can realize that you're part of the nourishment of all the people in your farm, on your farm, it creates a tie that's incredible because we plant the food, we treat the plants well, we harvest them at the right time, we cook the food, we eat the food, we wash up after the food. The ritual of feeding ourselves in the healthiest way possible is one of the most important things for all humans, and it makes a bond that is inviolable. Community life is the only future for planet Earth. We have to be restoring the Earth we're on all the time and helping it connect in positive ways with the other places that other people live. It's all about generosity. If you look at the whole plant kingdom, everything that plants do is generosity. They share everything. Animals do in many ways too.
And before we sit down for a meal, we say a grace. One of the graces is, the bread is not our food. What feeds us in the bread is God's eternal word, is spirit, and is life. And that's really another way of saying that it's not just the mineral substance that feeds us, but it's actually the life force, the life energy that's nourishing for us. That's why, one reason why there's so much obesity in the world, because people are eating food and they're not getting that life energy, and their food says, their body says, hey, eat more, I need more life energy, and it's just not available. Whereas if you eat organic and especially biodynamic food, that life energy is available for us. And it's even been proven that it changes people's behavior. The Wisconsin, that's one of the states of the United States, a city called Appleton, for a while they fed their kids organic lunches. And the teachers noticed that the kids behaved in a different way. They were more eager to learn, and they wanted to come to school. And even the teachers that were eating those organic lunches, they even noticed a difference. And once somebody asked Rudolf Steiner, why is it that when people have, and this was in he gave biodynamic course in 1924, somebody asked, why is it that when people have thoughts, it's so hard for them to act on their thoughts? And Steiner said it's because the food doesn't have the energy in it, the life force in it, that allows the thinking and the willing to be connected. And we see that now so much. We have these wonderful thoughts, and it's really hard to act upon them. So that is on when we create the biodynamic farm, we're working on that sentient level. And then we also work on the spiritual level, and that's more due to how the farmer is, what the farmer brings to the land. The farmer is kind of the spiritual being of the land. And we can see that if we imagine 10 farms next to each other with the same soil, the same size, same everything, each farm would be different. One farmer might be a dairy farmer. The other one might like goats or vegetables. Another farmer could be a really great farmer, another one a poor farmer. That's how we work to create the farm individuality. That's good for now, and I thought maybe we'd take a little walk around the farm and see how we're doing that here. So here we have our cows. We have about 10 acres of pasture here, so we're just small scale. Right now we're milking these 2 cows by hand every morning. Cows are a pretty special animal. Just the way they digest their food and give the manure, which keeps the fertility going. We treat our cows pretty well here. Like in the States, when I had cows, we were milking twice a day, and we really went for production. Here, we're only getting about 1.5 gallons from each cow, sometimes 1 gallon. But we leave the calves on. It makes life a lot easier. Usually we separate them before lunch, and then in the morning we can milk the cows. The calves are really happy. I mean, he's not a calf anymore. That's this bully usually would have weaned him a long time ago, but he's quite happy to get some milk still. So simplifies our life that we can keep the cows and calves together if we don't want to milk. But even in the States, I left the cows and calves together for 2 months. And I think it really helped the cows, the whole herd, because usually in the States or Europe, often they take the calf away at birth, so the mother has no chance to develop her mothering instincts, which, a cow is such a being of the earth, of the moon, that it's important that she can have that experience.
When I meet people, I like to find out why they're alive. Because when you're on your life path, it's joy all the time. And usually people tell me an answer that has to do with helping people and serving people. And that is one of the best ways to live because it's so healthy for you. And that's why at 80 I'm still happy and healthy, because I've served people helping find their life path my whole life. Been very successful with 40 different networks, many of them in finance, but making solar happen for the world, all kinds of other things. So what I do with the interns who come here is I help them be clear about why they are alive. And then I tutor them about how to go forward with that, the way I've done all these 40 innovation networks that are all based on generosity. They're all based on the strategy. Our strategy is generosity, and they've all worked. Well, we're all born from Mother Earth, and she is our mother. And when we're on a life path that restores her, it restores all. It's good for all life, animals, plants, birds, humans. It's just makes common sense.
So now we're coming into our gardens. I mentioned before that we have quite a few volunteers, and I try to give people an experience of how humans can work in harmony with nature. And of course our partners, Palta indigenous partners, Jose and Carmen, they organize this garden. They're doing a beautiful job. It includes the food forest that surrounds it. But anyway, I try to make it so that the volunteers understand that we can again work with nature in harmony, and that the earth actually loves to provide us with our nourishment. And this is not your typical North American or European garden where everything is in beautiful rows and you can use tractors and very high production. Where everything here is done by hand. Well, we do have a weed whacker and a chainsaw, but everything else is done by hand, so we don't have a tractor. And at first, when Jose and Carmen came about 5 years ago, it was like, oh wow, I don't know about this, because you'll see there'll be some cabbages here, maybe a couple of beets there, and it's very hodgy-podgy. You sort of have to know where everything is. But actually, it turned into a beautiful garden with a lot of flowers and a good rotation. You know, there's always room for improvement, but on the whole, it's beautiful. And when you walk through, it just feels really vibrant, as if all the elemental beings are around, especially if you would walk through it at sunset. It's just very, very powerful. I love this garden. I have to admit, I don't do much gardening anymore myself. I'm 72 years old, so I enjoy doing other things, but it's still beautiful. We're very blessed in that we have all this water coming through. It's the rainy season right now, so everything's green, but if it was the dry season, all these hills would be brown, but we still have all this beautiful water. We can grow a mix of traditional vegetables like yuca, camote, which is a kind of a sweet potato, zanahoria blanca, which is sort of halfway, sort of like a turnip, but in a big bunch. You'll see lots of papaya trees, and we grow coffee. And like here we have strawberries. We also have cuys, or guinea pigs. And so we have grass that we can feed them. There's some dill. It's our greenhouse over there. And like this is a papaya with beans growing on it, and you can see all the flowers. We have a sort of a strange climate here in that we're a little bit too warm to grow good cabbages and cauliflowers and things like that. But we're getting better. We have to put a lot of fertility in that. Places that would be 2,000 feet higher can grow those better, and we can't grow the real hot tropical stuff. We're a little too cool for that. So here in Ecuador, it's all about altitudes. Like if we were 1,000 feet higher, we could grow wheat and quinoa. We're trying to breed varieties of quinoa that we could grow here. We have the mandarin trees, and over there is a tent for volunteers. This is the zanahoria blanca. The translation would be white carrot, but it's more like a turnip. Of course, this is coffee, so we have biodynamic coffee. They'll turn red in a little while. And we have lots of compost piles. And that's an avocado tree. You can see an avocado there. It's avocado season right now. We have amaranth, and chia grows really well here. Chia is good to get rid of diabetes, so we're hoping we can develop that. And of course, corn is growing really well. And this is yucca. It's not like yucca that they grow in the Amazon, which is like huge. This is usually about this long. It's a good vegetable. This is good for what they call horchata tea. Horchata tea is a local tea that can have like 14 different leaves and flowers and roots in it. Depends on which part of Ecuador it comes from. Some This is a medicinal sugar cane. And we have cauliflower. It's heading out a little bit. They tend to head out really quickly. Tomatoes we have to grow in a greenhouse because they get too many diseases. Some nice papayas. And we found that like the traditional papaya trees do better here. Sometimes we brought seeds in, like from a Hawaiian papaya seed, and they grow much shorter. Lots and lots of papaya, but they die within 2 years, whereas these trees have quite a few years on them. And they had beans and carrots. And then we have a lot of those big, I'm not sure what the names are, those big yellow, those bushes with the yellow flowers. The bees really love that, so we have a lot of bees in here. We have 4 beehives in another place. You can see the soil is, well, it's the rainy season, it's been raining a lot. This soil is actually pretty sandy, so we do have to put a lot of compost in it. But it's nice. It's good soil. Smells good. Lots of organic matter. We can get bogasa, which is sugar. They grow a lot of sugar cane here, and then they crush that, and what's left over are the big stalks, and we can get that just about for free. So we use a lot of that for organic matter. Compost that. We grow cotton. More corn. This is lemongrass or Herba Louisa. You can see it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that all over the place. We're even growing some zucchini over there. That's hard to grow here. It gets the white fungus real fast. And now we're going to walk down into what we call the Inca Garden, because when we came here it was so rocky. We had to do something with the rocks, and we had a helper here, Christian, who made all these rock walls. So it's like the Incas loved working with rocks, so we call it the Inca Garden. And we grow mainly medicinal herbal plants there. So this garden's actually looking for somebody who would like to take it on, and maybe we could do essential oils or something like that. So it sometimes gets a little weedy because we don't really have any production out of that, but from here it looks all right now. But we'll take a walk down. We grow a lot of ginger and turmeric. I think this is all the turmeric, yeah. It grows well. And we have red raspberries. This is where one of our volunteers is living right now. Equisetum. I think it's different than the variety they have in Europe, like that we use for the biodynamic preparations, but I think it still works. And this is a tropical oregano. It's not intense like the European or American oregano. And this is Guayusa plant. This is what the indigenous in the jungle make a tea every morning, like 4 or 5 o'clock, and they gather and they drink this and they interpret their dreams, and that's how they decide what their day is going to be. They get messages from spirit how they should spend their day. all kinds of things, plants and herbs, and I have to admit I was more of a dairy farmer than a gardener, so we're looking for somebody who would really like to take this on. And now I'm walking towards the chickens. Well, we have turkeys too, maybe you heard them, and ducks. They have a pretty big free-range area. This is more where we feed them. But you probably heard the turkeys going. There's a big rooster here. Again, we don't get real high production, but they have a beautiful life. They're what they call Creole, or the more traditional breeds, rather than say a Rhode Island Red or something that would give a lot more eggs. And I like to have animals that have a longer lifespan, so like cows for milk rather than for beef, or chickens for eggs rather than raising them for meat. Yeah, and I feel good about it because we actually give them a beautiful lifestyle, and in return we get some eggs or milk. Well, there's only one egg here right now. Maybe somebody collected the eggs already. Anyway, that's chickens and turkeys. We could have a quick look at the adobe cabins for our volunteers. Adobe cabins that we built. The adobe came from the base of the mountain over there on the backs of the burros. You just mix the clay with water and have little forms, make the bricks. Susan and I lived in this one for a year and a half while we were building our main house. We had a composting toilet, and down there was the kitchen. And it was very nice actually, because we learned that we could live very simply. We didn't need a refrigerator. I mean, this was like 10 years ago, so we were 60s and 70s. And it was fine, it was beautiful. It's very close to nature, and we don't need everything we think we need. So that was a nice lesson for us. So here we are. You've just watched a brief introduction to our farm, the sacred site here. And you might wonder what our vision is for the future. And, you know, this has been a beautiful 15 years for Susan and I, very creative, and we've really been able to share.
Yeah, as you know from the film, I have been developing the social investment industry over my whole life, and it's been wildly successful because we developed a strategy of generosity. We're obviously using that here at Finca Sagrada, and we're having the same positive results. So I'm grateful to God and all of you.
Yeah, so you might wonder what our vision is for the future. And we're just in the process of buying nearly 4 hectares next door. That's about 10 acres. And this will give us the opportunity to expand. So our dream is to create a small community. We're looking for individuals or couples who might want to join us. You know, you could build your own house and help in supporting what we're doing here. There's so much potential here for future projects. For instance, we'd love to start a little retreat center, do teaching here. For instance, we're looking for a biodynamic farmer who not only likes to farm and garden, or a couple, but also to work with young people. We have this very successful volunteer program. We could develop that into a bit more of a learning, training center. So we think there's opportunities for many different people. So yeah, that's in short our vision, to expand a little bit and share this with many people, because it's more than Susan and I can manage, and we have huge potential here. So thanks for watching this video.
Woo!